So here's one of a group of emerald tree boas I had back in the early thousands. Had a decent sized group of these. I had originally four, lost one and replaced it. So we had generally a group of four, all living together. Here we're moving on to feeding sequence. This was always fun, feeding emeralds when you've got four of them in one cage. It was a pretty big cage. It was 4 foot by 4 foot by 2 foot. All our cages at that time were homemade. These were Guianan or northern emerald tree boas. They're not as desirable or as flashy as the Amazon basins, but you know, they're still super attractive snakes. So like I was saying, yeah, we'd originally bought four of them that were wild caught. They were advertised as long-term captive, but they were in a terrible state when we got them. They all had stuck dry sheds on them. A couple of them had infections in the cloacas. They were badly dehydrated. Really shouldn't have touched them, but I travelled a long way for them, and I knew that not buying them was probably certain death for all of them. So we took them and started, we set about work on fixing them up. First thing was obviously get them rehydrated, start worrying about the infections, etc., and then on to the job of getting them feeding. They all seem to improve really quickly. 3 of them, started feeding well, responded really well. One of them just didn't. She shed a number of times. She wasn't feeding, but she looked to be getting better and better. She drank and she was shedding, and she got herself looking just about perfect, albeit underweight, and then just died, which was unfortunate. And we replaced her with a captive bred female. I recall we got from Snakes and Adders, and the 4 of them went on. They did really well. They thrived. They grew. It took us probably more than a year to put the weight back on the wild caught ones. You can't feed them like you can a king snake. You can't power feed an emerald tree boa. But they all came good. We had some courtship behaviour, but nothing ever came of that, which was a shame. But the captive bred girl, was just in a totally different league from the wild caught one. If you're ever going for emerald tree boas, go for the captive bred stuff. Take it from my experience. Go for the captive bred stuff. They are far superior in every way to captive life over wild caught emeralds. Every time we got the wild caught emeralds out to do some work on them, I set a timer of 5 minutes, because that's how long I felt they could take being handled. After 5 minutes, they'd actually start going limp, like they were giving up, and that's a really bad sign in those kind of snakes. So any work that we had to do for them, cleaning up mouth infections, cloacal infections, giving any drugs or anything, that was 5 minutes tops. That's how long we had to do it. But anyway, back to the feeding sequence. I fast forwarded it so we didn't have to go through the 7 to 10 minutes it takes for an emerald to dispatch a tiny little mouse like that. You can see in this photo here, this is like a night vision infrared camera. You can see the eye shine on these. I believe that Corallus are the only genus of snakes that actually have reflective retinas, eye shine, so that's quite an interesting thing. You can see it really well in that shot there. I believe this was the male that was feeding here, so he was one of the wild caught ones. They all turned out to be really good feeders eventually, once we got them started with chicks and superheating rats and things like that. I think at this point here, as he starts climbing up, one of the females comes across his face. She moves in front of him. You see, she was a decent bit bigger than him. All of these snakes were well over 5 feet long. And they were great, you know, once they were going. I really enjoy keeping them. I keep green tree pythons these days, but I'm tempted to get back into keeping emeralds. Got Zach to thank for that. Zach from the Joker Reptiles page, he started keeping emeralds, and every time he puts the pictures up it tempts me to get them, so I'll blame him when I do get some more. There's one of the females coming down there. You can see her head's quite a lot bigger than his. You know, she might have been pushing close to 6 foot, this one. And yeah, as I say, it was always fun feeding them. Once we got the feeding responses up, and you've got 4 snakes that are all longer than the cage that they're in, it's quite a bit of fun. I think here, the camera shot at this time, we were waiting for the elusive post-feed yawn, so we could see those big teeth and the huge mouth. And you can just see under the snake's chin here, that dark patch there, that's the fold that emerald tree boas have in the lower jaw. It actually expands really, really big when they eat. Looks dirty and almost mouldy when you see it for the first time, but it's just, there's not much scalation to the skin there, it's just elastic skin. You can see her there going in for a little nuzzle. She can smell the rat, but she knows that it's not there. You know, she's trying to, I don't know, if she's trying to coax the male into letting her have the mouse or something, I don't know. But yeah, as I say, this is the early 2000s. I actually sold the group after the first sort of failed attempt at breeding season. You know, we had the courtship behaviour and nothing really came of it from either female. And situations changed anyway, and we ended up moving them on. I had no idea where they are or if they're still alive today, but I know that if I was keeping them, they probably would be, because they were doing so well at the time. I'd be surprised if they weren't now. Here comes the big yawn, huge mouth, massive teeth. Teeth are absolutely enormous, you know. It's true what they say about them. They do have enormous teeth. You wouldn't want to get bitten by one. Anyway, that was the end of the video.